Let it out! Let it out! Let it out! Let it out! Let it out, He-Man! The Other is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. It was written and directed by Paul Etheridge and features Olivia Macklin as Robin and Dylan McTee as Daniel. They are a couple that really have absolutely no chemistry. I'm actually wondering if it was an arranged marriage based on how the characters interact. But that being said, well, Robin is a realtor. Daniel does some kind of at-home work. I actually don't know what the fuck he does for work. I don't really necessarily care. It's not important for the purposes of this review. But they are unable to conceive. So they get Cathelia. You're breaking my heart. What the fuck is going on in this movie? Cathelia, you're ripping off a bunch of movies that did ideas in this better. Okay, there are some decent practical effects, I will say that much. Unfortunately, this is a checklist horror movie where you can guess where everything is going. Even an attempt at a third act twist that you saw in another movie with a bigger budget, you're not really going to get a lot of positive stuff out of this. While I tried to give it a chance, I really fucking did. It just got worse and worse. The third act in particular was so goddamn shit and dark and rushed. And despite the fact that this was actually 95 minutes, there's so much padding in this, yet it's also simultaneously rushed. They don't allow anything to breathe, but they also don't allow anything to really, expand. It's hard to describe unless you've seen this movie just how incompetent the whole production is. And it's decently shot. The practical effects actually are pretty good, as I said. And there was at least a bit of a budget behind this. Unfortunately, there's just absolutely putrid line delivery. Shawnee Smith, who was in The Blob and Saw 2 and 3, plays the mother of Fiona. Lily D. Moore, who her character factors into stuff a little bit later on, but her character also is so one note that I don't really know what they expected that little girl to do. Also, Lily happens to have Down syndrome, and at least they don't make that the central focus of her character, so at least that's a positive step in the right direction. Also, Evangelina Friedlander, who plays Cathelia, she's the adopted kid. She does okay, I guess. There isn't really a lot to sink your teeth into, though, and there's just going to be a lot of stuff to spoil. If I had paid for this, if it hadn't been free on Amazon Prime, I probably would have been pissed off because I would have felt like I pissed my money down the goddamn drain, which I have done with a numerous amount of movies this year. This is pretty goddamn bad. It's pretty goddamn bad, guys. Don't really know what the fuck they were going for, but it was a mess. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. There we go. So, we get some Strobe, experimentation stuff straight out of Malignant. In fact, Malignant is a central theme of this movie. Also, bring her back with a pool. I mean, fuck, they have a goddamn pool and a drowning scene in this a little bit later on. But Malignant is the main theme of this. And if you remember Malignant, then depending on how you felt about that, this is just a micro-budget version of that. I didn't like Malignant. I didn't like Malignant one bit. I actually thought it was really stupid, and not even in a fun way. I just thought it was really fucking stupid. This takes itself so bone serious, though, that Malignant's actually starting to look a little bit better. Cathelia basically, acts really strange and everything. She can't speak because she has some kind of, genetic issue or whatever. Her previous homes have not worked out, but certain shit has gone on to where, like her previous home, people were driven mad and everything, and the family was murdered, and now she's with Robin and Daniel. There's absolutely no chemistry. Even Daniel, who tries to get through to Cathelia and tries to be a good dad, Robin has such a sudden switch that they try to have make sense, but it really doesn't make any goddamn sense if we're being perfectly honest. The explanation is overall so fucking stupid. I mean, really, really fucking stupid. So, food is rotted. Boom, the kid brings a knife into her bed the first night. We find out why a little bit later on. And there's pink slimy egg stuff in the goddamn pool for whatever fucking reason. We find out a little bit later on, but just it's so goddamn strange. Practical effects again are whatever. These two are terrible parents is what I noted. And there's a bunch of dolls that Robin gave her, including one that she had as a kid, one that talked. Oh, maybe we need to get some dolls with different skin tones. They get that a little bit later on. And Cathelia decides to just throw a bunch of dolls in the goddamn sewer. Just let them go down the sewer deal. And Fiona says, well, no, you don't want to do that. Hey, let's cut up the dolls and get the stuff that's inside, because Fiona's a little bit disturbed. The character, I mean. And that lady is a door is what she keeps mentioning. She mentions how that lady is a door. What lady? It's Robin. Because Robin and Daniel were unable to conceive, but after fucking in the pool that has a bunch of this pink slimy egg stuff, they end up having basically, they basically are able to conceive a child. Even though she has lost all these children before, she feels that this might be the right one. Oh yes, and also in the interim, Cathelia decides to get a saw and a drill, and Daniel does weird experiments and weird stuff. He has sciencey stuff. He has all kinds of tools in his garage, his man cave, as it were. And before the fucking in the pool, we also see Cathelia attacking a kid that basically says, I heard your mom killed your goddamn dad and everything. So, Cathelia basically has weird flashbacks. There's this guy asking to protect his little girl. Something happened with her dad. Something got her dad. And Fiona basically talks about how monsters are coming. She's over on a play date. And like, you've seen one before, a real one. The thing is this movie just has all kinds of bits of dialogue and everything where it's trying to build up to something haunting. And it's really not that haunting. So, Robin is pregnant again, acts all weird. Coffee seems to be a central theme of this movie. I actually think that booze or meth probably would have been, given how people were acting. But then again, nobody was scratching their face and acting all weird, except for the aforementioned doctors a little bit later on. And she ends up basically sharding out the goddamn kid. But she does have something growing inside her. What is this thing growing inside her? Well, she's a door. It's this thing that is, it's this entity, it's this something that keeps following goddamn Cathelia. So, then she has an address written down, Cathelia does, and Daniel decides a smart thing, while his wife is clearly off her goddamn tits and bleeding out, is to go to this address, where there's a lady named Evelyn that actually has rotted stuff in her, and tries to attack Cathelia. And the guy says, well, get rid of her while you can, however you can, whatever way you can. And then the lady, Evelyn, tries to jump on the goddamn Jeep and in comical fashion falls off of it when he pulls back and stops it suddenly. And essentially, she goes to, I say this is dumb as fuck because it really is. Then Robin is basically saying, oh, if you scream, maybe if you scream, he'll hear you. You think he's going to come rescue you? Oh, just let it out, let it out, let it out. And Fiona basically has friends in the... This is after, by the way, she's able to get away from Robin. Fiona brings Cathelia up there and introduces her to her friends. A bunch of bugs and a bunch of weird stuff, and turns out she can actually communicate with the dead, I guess. Kind of, maybe, sort of. But she ends up hitting Cathelia in the head. Cathelia's fine, except something got woken up. Something that has basically been part of her from her birth. Because it was a vanishing twin syndrome thing, and she basically consumed her twin. Now, this twin is a fetus inside her head. Much like the Malignant thing at the back of the head. I forgot exactly what the name of the twin was. I don't care. It gave Washington State a bad name. But Robin is still bleeding and losing kid, but then the kid still stays there. She has jars of all these random fetuses. And this doctor, this male doctor, shows up and basically says, hey, you know, she's at the vanishing twin syndrome. She's got all this stuff going on. There's also this other doctor, this woman that shows up to deliver some of the worst lines I have heard in a purported big-budgeted horror movie or modest-budgeted horror movie in fucking years. Robin continues to bleed. There's a lot of blood featured in this. We have this weird stuff going on in the pool. So go see Fiona, find out what's going on. Shawnee Smith basically explains, well, as I was messed up during my pregnancy, but I died, she didn't. She basically died giving birth to her, but got brought back, I guess. And she doesn't see the difference between life and death. They're the same to her because she lives in both worlds. What? Sure. Why not at this fucking point here? And Fiona basically is in a full-body, weird rain jacket, see-through thing to communicate with the dead. And that this woman's trying to reach her. Who is this woman? You gotta dig it out of the body. You gotta set it free. And then Billy Neal, the director, or not the director, the doctor that is, shows up and basically is delivering this terrible lines of, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you and this kind of stuff, even though only mere hours or a few days have passed, and Robin is just already giving birth to a fucking watermelon times 3. And Robin then has the scissors out. She ends up stabbing Daniel, who somehow is okay, by the way, but she ends up gut stabbing the doctor about 8 million times. And that's after the doctor's like, I'm going to leave now. I'm going through the door, telling you where I am. Killer, clearly. So, Fiona sees a goddamn sledgehammer on the goddamn deal while looking for a phone. And her mother ends up getting killed. Oh no, that's just terrible. So, mind you, just before that, we get the pool scene where Shawnee Smith ends up showing up and clocking Robin over the head with the goddamn brick to rescue Cathelia. But then Robin comes back and basically ends up killing Lizzie, Shawnee Smith's character, and has a sledgehammer and is dragging it and everything. And I know sledgehammers are hard to, swing sometimes, especially if they're heavy, but if you can't even hit basically a stationary target with about 5 tries, that's not good. I mean, you get hit it once out of 5, that's not very good. But here's Robin. And the idea is the only way to get rid of this, whatever the fuck's going on, whatever has been haunting Cathelia and all this and the rotted food, is to dig the goddamn thing out with a drill. So drill into her head. Okay, they drill into her head, and that's it. But then her body falls over. Fiona's like, I thought it would work. And then he looks in her skull. By the way, it is so dark you can't see what's going on here, and sees an eye open, basically, and this fetus thing crawls out of her brain. This fetus thing, by the way, that is bigger than her brain, that wouldn't be able to house in the skull, but it's fine. It's fine. And then ends up crawling up to him and starting to bite him while these two girls just stand there. While Fiona just stands there, I don't know what the hell she's doing. And while Cathelia, who has had this thing living in her goddamn head, basically just does nothing. And then she says, sister, picks it up and snaps its neck. And then you gotta bury the body. And then Robin apparently is okay and we cut to credits. That is seriously how this movie fucking ends. I mean, my God. My God. Good God, y'all. How fucking terrible can you be? This movie's fucking rotten. I mean, even the decent practical effects, good grief. It's an amalgamation of ideas that don't really go anywhere. And you see what I meant about the third act, from the time, by the way, that Shawnee Smith, is describing her, giving birth to Fiona and all that stuff, to where they show Robin and she seems to be okay, cutting the twin out and everything and snapping its neck and doing all that. That's 20 minutes. Maybe 22. All that happens in 22 minutes. And it's not even a slow build. It's not even a good slow burn. It's just shit, we don't know. Oh, God damn it, we got funding. Let's blow the goddamn budget here. Gets an F. This is terrible. Agree, disagree what I said? Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin. Until we vanish in twin again, happy trails to you.